I feel like this is the key for all of filmmaking, which is just being super critical about every image that you make.
Yeah, I
And
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree
that's
more.
it. I mean, and
I
that
do.
comes down to the lighting and to
Yeah.
the composition, and move it, it's slightly to the 2 pixels to the left. And I mean, you got to have the attention to detail like that, I think.
What's up, big leaguers? Today we have Adam Patch on the show. If you haven't heard of this guy, look him up, adampatch.com. His work is ridiculous. He's actually a director, so you're probably wondering what the heck is going on here. Has this show changed from cinematography to how does a director do what he does? No, it hasn't. But the reason I brought him on is because he had a couple pieces that he did for Tim Ferris for his book releases. And they were ridiculous. And the first one, at least, wasn't a big budget, so it's him with just a few people. And you could really see the expertise that he brings to the table so that a finished product becomes polished. And what we discuss is, what can we learn from a director? What can we learn from him so that we, as cinematographers, can basically play the role of director when we're out there on our own? Because obviously he's bringing so much to the table to make sure that the final product is pristine. So as a lot of us are out there and we're just shooting on our own, what can we learn from him who's directing a shoot so that when we're out there on our own, what can we do to make our stuff look like his? So we get into that, he gives a lot of tips from a cinematography angle and thinking about the concept and how to develop a good concept. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how pretty your images are, if you don't have a good idea to work with, it's nothing. Nothing is going to work. So sit back, relax. This is a good one. I'm telling you, I had a blast. This guy is the coolest. You're going to enjoy it. Take it away. Okay, Adam, welcome to the show. You're on Big League Film School. This is the premier show for cinematographers, and we brought you on because you got some hot stuff. I've been following you since your insane videos that you did for Tim Ferris, the first one, and ever since I've been on your site watching what you've been doing. It's ridiculous, and you got to give us all the goods. We want to know how you do it.
Sure thing, man.
So the first question that I want to ask you is, you're a director. That's your main thing. Directing, and also you're pretty tight with your animation. I've seen your animation skills,
Yeah.
and I know that that's a big part of your your workflow and maybe how you think. You're always thinking with that in mind. I'm guessing from what I've seen on your site. So here I am, a lone soldier. 90% of the time, I go out and it's just me, maybe an assistant or two. What can you teach me? I'm not a director. But what can you teach me if you were to go out on your own? What can you tell me? Okay, this is how you have to think as you go out so that you can, get amazing stuff.
That's a good question.
So in other words, I'm putting you now in director and cinematographer's shoes. And
Right.
what are some of the things that you do that you know a cinematographer does not do? And if he knew what you knew, then it would help him.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm a fairly kind of hands-on director in terms of the cinematography. So, I'm not. I think some directors are kind of like, here's what I'm thinking, and the cinematographer kind of does their own thing. I'm like not afraid to get in there and be like, camera should be right here on a 32 mil lens, and we should be at a really shallow depth of field or something. So, first, I mean, I think. Being open to that sort of collaboration is helpful for me, and that's the type of cinematographers that I like to work with, are people that enjoy that back and forth. But then also, I mean, the thing I think that's sort of the difference in being in the director's shoes compared to the cinematographer is that I kind of have it all in my head before we even get on set, and it's my job as the director to get the cinematographer into that same place, to figure out how it's going to piece together. Since I have like an editing background, it's that definitely informs sort of the way that I think about stuff, I think. But it's helpful, one of the best parts for me is when you sit down with the DP and you go through and you talk about the whole overall story. And it's not really just about making individual shots work or, one little thing look cool or like the way that the light's going to hit this scene, but how it's all going to work together. Because once that's in place, then the DP can help, put in other input that I'm not thinking about. It'd be really cool if for the story, if we shot this part on a wider lens, and then when we get here later, after the, whatever happens, we shoot all this stuff on a longer lens and, kind of make some visual suggestions that I wasn't even thinking about. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just sort of stepping back and looking at the whole story and thinking about the project at the highest level.
Are you for the most part? Let's focus for a moment on like lower budget stuff, because I think the average person that's watching isn't necessarily doing work yet at big budgets where there's agencies involved and whatnot.
Yeah.
So when it's not like that and you're basically in charge from A to Z, are you the one that's basically in the creative chair, meaning coming up with the concept and how to and how to best execute the vision of the project?
Yeah, a lot of the times. I mean, I think a lot of the time there's the client, whoever that is, there's already some sort of idea of what they want. Like, I feel like I rarely get somebody coming to me with a fully blank slate. Like, we just need something, and I just start from square one.
Right.
There's usually something that's like, sometimes it's already a fleshed out story in their head completely, and I have to come in and figure out how to, like, A, make that better, and B, still give them what they want. And then other times it's just like a general thing, like, a music video where they're like, oh, we want this to take place in the rain. And that's like the only thing that they have, there's no story around it. It's just like one element visual that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely different per project, but I mean, for me, it's fun to get the creative stuff where you get to plan it all.
Right, so I was watching some of the on Tim Ferris's site, some of the behind the scenes images that you have there on the first book video that you made for him, and I noticed how much equipment was necessary. Like, let's say some of the indoor shots, you had plenty of scrims up and whatnot to soften the light and etc. Like what would you tell cinematographers some of the basic things that they need to do to accomplish a solid look? In other words, they can't just show up with a camera and expect to get high-end visuals.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, good question. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that there's like kind of one thing that's like, this is the secret ingredient. It's just attention to detail. It's just, you can go in with a camera and just a camera and make it look great, but it's just, it's just everything else has to be lined up. Your art direction, what your composition's like, and you have to be using the natural light in the right way so that it looks, as good as you can. And then when you need all those other people and those other things is when all those conditions aren't perfect already, and you have to tweak them to make them perfect for you. So, so for instance, like with Tim's 4-Hour Body trailer, we were shooting, it was just the atrium of his house. Right. So, there was already pretty good natural light there. He had this great like skylight that was coming through. But, the time of day we were shooting, it wasn't exactly perfect. So we had to add some extra light. And, the art direction was the biggest key thing. There was nothing, it's just a deck. So we had to bring out a desk out and figure out all the things that are on the deck and how to compose the shots to make it feel, the way that we want it to feel. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just being, I feel like this is the key for all of filmmaking, which is just being super critical about every image that you make.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
That's it. I mean, that comes down to the lighting and to the composition and, move it, it's slightly to the 2 pixels to the left. And I mean, you got to have the attention to detail like that, I think.
Art direction. You mentioned art direction.
Yeah.
I've been privy recently to see really high-end art direction, and I realized how crucial that is. In other words, a cinematographer can do everything right, but when they're given a nice, good art direction, it just takes everything away. So can you talk a little bit about that? some of the things that you know about it and suggestions on that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. A good art director, and that's just like makes the cinematographers. It makes everybody's job so much easier. It makes my job as a director. And
What
yeah, I
is it
mean,
first of all? Define
sure.
it first.
Well, it's basically, production designer, art director, sort of interchangeable, I guess.
Right.
It's sort of figuring out what props and what's set dressings and what's visually in the frame, what colors to use, what type of, you're shooting a living room, what type of couch is that, what type of lamp goes there, what art is on the wall, all those little details. I think, having somebody there to help you figure out all those things is huge. And it's no matter how great the lighting is and how perfect your composition is, if you have a huge, ugly looking logo that's peeking into frame or something that you wouldn't really look at or that you don't even notice when you're framing up. I mean, those are like the little things that just, that are just totally going to distract and make it feel more amateur. Whereas if you have, this couch is very specifically, going with the rest of the stuff we have, and this art piece in the back is going to be exactly framed up with this or whatever. So it's just having something that has that attention to the little details so that you can focus on kind of the other stuff.
And would you say that you're not, I mean, how would you rate yourself in that department? Because it seems to me like you don't, from what I've seen on your site, I mean, obviously we're talking some of these things are a little bit bigger budget, but that's not your focus. And would you say that you even need an art director yourself personally on even small budget in order to accomplish this? Would you, in other words, that's like a key element? I need an art director. Otherwise, how am I going to make this look good?
Oh, right. Well, I don't think you need it. It's just like you don't, you can do all these things by yourself. I think that what's helpful is that because you can basically delegate that duty to somebody else so that you can focus more on what you need to focus on, which is the biggest thing for me is like, when I was in film school, you're wearing a million different hats and, playing every role at the same time. So when you are able to say, get a DP and get an art director and get a solid producer and get, an AD and all those things that are helpful in a production, the reason that that's so helpful is because then now I'm only wearing the one hat, which is figuring out how to direct this and make it, make the creative come to life. So yeah, you don't need it. It takes away from, if you're focusing on the art direction part, then,
But you're saying don't. It's not something that you necessarily. It's not. You can't cop out of that. Is what you're saying. In other words, if there isn't somebody to play that role, you got to fill those. You got to fill those shoes. You got to do the work.
Absolutely, totally. I mean, that's like, I feel like that's the biggest piece of the puzzle that falls short in student stuff or amateur stuff is the art direction. Is just that. Looking at what's in the frame is that that's a step that comes along further in the process for a lot of people as they're starting out. They're first thinking about the camera and they're thinking about the frame and they're thinking about the light and maybe the stuff that they learned in school or whatever, but they're not thinking about how that red book in the background is affecting the frame and the composition and just small stuff like that you wouldn't even necessarily think about. And then you also can start to use it instead of just making it like the art direction is just stuff that works with the project. You start to use it as a way to actually make the project, and then it sort of revolves around the art direction. Instead of it's supposed to fall into the background, it's something that you're doing purposefully. So like a lot of the stuff that you've probably seen on my site is like, it's highly designed. It started with the art direction. It's all about that. And if you don't have, it's basically people on a green screen or something. It's all about kind of what props they're using or whatever. So, right. Those are the sort of the two roles that I think art direction can play.
Tell us a little bit about color correction. I know you get your hands dirty with that. Tell us a little bit about it and how crucial it is to the end results.
Yeah.
For those who haven't really dug into it, there's all these presets, so a lot of people are just like drag and drop a quick little. Yeah. Give us a little bit about that. Man,
well, when I first started out, I was shooting on film only when I was in film school. And I remember the first time at our film school, they had like a little telecine lab where they would transfer it transfer the film, do, a little flat pass color correction, you get it back, and the film looked fine. It was like whatever, but I mean, it was cool to see your stuff back. I remember the first time that I went to like a legit color correcting, like a real telecine lab, and like there was a colorist who actually sat down and graded it and did what what the 20 years of training is to do, and I was like blown away at how different the image looked. It was the exact same stuff. It was just that it felt, all of a sudden it felt professional. Like, holy cow, I just shot some really good looking stuff, as opposed to, all right, that was cool for my class.
Wow. So it could be argued that if a person is a solid with the camera, he might be better off spending his hours educating himself on the post production, on the color correcting, more so than improving. I don't know whatever his actual holding of the camera. Working with the camera. In other words, his image could be good enough that all it needs now is that boost in post.
Exactly. I mean, I agree. It's definitely. I mean, it's probably it's equal. I mean, if you're not getting the good image on the negative, then there's nothing you can do in the color correction. But so I mean, that's equally as important. But it's just, I feel like it's a step that's easy to that people pass up on a lot. It's easy to just take it into Final Cut and do a quick 3-wheel color thing, or like put on some Mojo color corrector on it or whatever, and you think that it looks like the Matrix and you're cool with it, but it's just such an important part of the process that I think a lot of people step over, especially now with digital, when you can easily do that. Like I said, when I was in film school, like you have to go through a telecine anyway, so you have a colorist touching it at one point, so that's helpful. And now that you just shoot it on your camera and take it and plug it in your computer, I think there's a lot of people that can just sort of pass that off.
And now we have RAW coming, left and right from every angle you can imagine. So for sure, it's like I would recommend. It sounds like you're recommending too, that people should invest some time in that aspect of the game.
Definitely, yeah, and just it's like just being super critical about what you're seeing, about the color that you're seeing, and like the color and the stuff that you like out there, and figure out why is that working, and like what did those skin tones really feel like, and and just be super critical on that final image.
You just brought up something. Getting started out, and even still today, a lot of times, skin tone. Oh my goodness. Because all the other colors, as we know, if you got a picture in the background, nobody's gonna know if that red wasn't exactly that kind of a red, whatever you got.
Yeah.
But skin is skin. Everybody knows when it looks natural. You have some experience with that, on how to get good skin tones all the time? Is it just a matter of like having $1 million equipment, the best lights, and the best cameras, or is there? It's a tough one. I know. I'm not.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, that's probably answered better by my DP or whatever. I mean, I think in general, the kind of the rule is that you expose for the skin tones when you're setting your, when you're setting your exposures. If you expose for the skin tones, then it's not going to be too dark and too light, and everything else can be adjusted. But if you're setting that sort of middle ground right on the skin tones, then you're going to have the most latitude to play with.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And another thing on color correction is I say color correction, but I noticed on like the Tim Ferris thing, you did some things that were, I would say, beyond color correction, but it also wasn't really like animation. But you added like some, on that, you added some like making it look like lights were coming down from, I don't remember exactly what it was. It seems like that's such a huge advantage. You're going to shoot something, and to already have that in mind, hey, this is the look I want. I can't create that naturally right now. It's going to cost God knows how much. I can do this in After Effects.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've been, I sort of was doing motion graphics and After Effects stuff like at the same time that I was coming up through film school. So I kind of always had those two hand in hand, and I can't even stress how much that's a huge thing in my, in my personal style and my career, is that, like you said, to be able to know when it's worth it to do something on set, and when I can just be like, I'm going to paint that out. Like, we don't need to do another take. It's like 3 pixels on the edge of frame. I can paint that out in 5 minutes, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Interesting.
But then also, so I mean, there's a lot of situations like that where it's on set, and I'm like making a fly decision, like this is something I can fix in post really easily, and just know that it'll be there. But then the other time, which probably happens more than I'd like to admit, which is that in the end, I'm just adding more stuff. Like I go through and tweak it to make it better.
Yeah.
Not that I was planning on doing it. It wasn't a planned thing like that. Like the, for instance, this, the beam of light coming down in Tim's atrium in the trailer. Like I didn't plan on that when we were there. Just when I was, when I'm looking at the footage, I'm like, man, it would have been really nice if we did this. Let's just try it and see what happens, and sort of add these little, visual effects sweeteners to this shot.
Yeah,
Maybe
sure.
sometimes like I'll, I can't even think of all the situations. I've just used it a ton of times, just in little small things like, there's a really annoying, piece of dust on the iPad screen in this shot, so I'll just like get rid of that. Or there's this tree over here in the corner is just a little bit too saturated, so I can just like garbage mat that and turn down the saturation or whatever. Just like little small stuff that just goes such a long way when I'm able to sit there with the footage.
So we keep talking about Tim Ferriss's piece, and I think it's a good one for us to continue to focus on. But the shot selections in that, and also the second trailer, and heck, almost all of your work is like, every shot is a money shot. Every shot, is engaging. Cinematographer, it's like, you can do everything right, but it's like you need that vision of how to, what's going to really suck in the viewer. You clearly have that. And even if you're not holding the camera and you have a DP executing it, I'm assuming that's you, right? You're the one before you even talk to the cinematographer, say, ooh, I want a shot from this angle, doing that at this place, at that. So talk to a cinematographer who, you have that vision, but a cinematographer doesn't have a director needs that vision as well if he wants to get those looks. Yeah,
I mean, I think it kind of just goes back to like, looping the cinematographer into the bigger picture. If on storyboards of Tim Ferris, the 4-Hour Body trailer or whatever, if you just look at the boards or the shot list just says shot of a beaker getting a droplet out of the thing, whatever, you can shoot that in a million ways. So the trick is that we had a common language and we had an idea of how we wanted that scene to be. Like we talked about, me and my DP, we talked about this is going to be sort of like a Tony Scott type intro with like speed ramps and sort of flashes and really kind of like a combination of these macro shots and fast moving, have a lot of style to it. So we were on the same page with that, and that was because I had the scene pictured in my head. And again, it's my job to get other people on the board and vision what I'm visioning, so that when my DP is framing up the shot or giving a suggestion for the angle that we could do or what lens we need to be on, he has that same vibe of what I'm going for in the edit.
How do you recommend somebody developing that skill of that vision of different angles? Like, who would have thought to put the camera on the floor to see the
right.
You know what I'm saying? How do you develop that sense?
I mean, honestly, I think it's just like watching a ton of stuff, and I don't even necessarily mean movies or whatever, but just looking at art or photos or anything all around you, and just always dissecting it and being critical about it. You see if I used to be super into music videos, so I'd watch a ton of music videos, and you watch the first time and it's cool, that's a cool video, but then when you go through and you stop like frame by frame or shot by shot,
nice.
And I used to go through like
nice.
David Fincher's old music videos just frame by frame and be like, what is so cool about this composition? Like, why is this shot work so well?
Nice, man. Yeah,
and it's just doing that.
I think
just doing that and being critical about it.
I think that's not only overrated, but people getting started, or even people that are advanced and already skilled, is that they think they have to know these things instinctually.
Yeah.
In other words, they think they just this guy's so talented. Maybe I can find these great angles. And okay, that's good too. But like you were saying, it's something that you need to investigate. It's not
that
just
instinct.
Yeah.
That instinct comes from from years of like research and looking at stuff that helps you figure out what your instinct is. So I mean, you got to get inspired by everything else.
Nice. Okay, shoot. What else do I got for you? You got something? you got anything?
Whatever
other
you
heat
want
for us? I like to ask people. I mean, again, you're coming from a director standpoint, but if you could give a cinematographer like an actionable to do, to get them better,
Hmm.
what would that be? And it could be really technical. It doesn't have to be like a very broad, like go out and practice or something like that. It could be very,
Yeah.
like something about lighting. Maybe you have a tip on lighting. Maybe you have a tip on, I don't know.
Um, Man, you know what? I don't know. That's a hard one, especially technical stuff. Because I mean, this is the thing that with my relationship with DPs, or just like sort of how I view cinematography in general, is I'm not really technical in that. Like I don't know what light is coming behind that silk and which
Mm,
light is going to be better. I know what the end product looks like and how it looks on the person. So
hmm
I mean, I think that sometimes there's a people have a preconceived notion of the right way to do things, or the way that they saw somebody else do it on set or whatever, in terms of lighting, what light to use, how to put the scene together. So I think it's just super important to just always be looking really at the image, and the person, and really think about what's going to be best and what is that light really doing. And I mean, I'm constantly blown away by DPs all the time that they have like this tiny little single net, and they're going like this, they're A Bing it, and it's like I can barely see it, but their attention to detail is just like, on, off, and they're like, yeah, on, definitely on, and like I can barely see it, but the fact that they're looking, that much attention to detail on the image that we're capturing is like that's a dream.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also a nice little tip right there for anybody who's like paying close attention. You just described, one of the methods that DPs use to test things out.
Yeah,
I've seen it all the time too. They put their hand out and they watch the light, and they see how it reacts to certain things.
yeah,
What is one thing, and we can close out with this. Since you're a director and hiring DPs, and you've said already several times in this interview, my DP, my DP. Clearly,
yeah.
you like your DP, and that's what probably most directors, they find somebody, they like working with them. Maybe they'll use other people too, but they, usually they develop a relationship. What is it that you look for in a cinematographer, in a DP? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but like,
Yeah.
what do you think are traits that, like, this is the, what a cinematographer needs to have, and it's what you look for.
Yeah. I mean, I think um, honestly, I mean, I think a huge part of it is not even the technical related. It's like how we work together,
Uh
and
huh.
it's just the relationship that we have on set. And just because there's so many people out there that are great, like they can make an image look good, and they can light, especially some of the more like sort of commercial stuff that I'm doing right now, which is just like it's not like the most, some of it's not the most creative stuff. It's just make them look nice and high gloss, and high key, and blah blah blah. So it's not. Um, Sometimes it doesn't come down to the creative part of it, and it's just honestly like who's fun to be around on set, who has a good attitude, and who I can work with well, and be open to collaboration, and give good suggestions, and all that stuff. I mean, I'm just surprised, honestly, how much that sort of comes into a factor when I'm
Yeah,
picking
yeah.
somebody.
I've said it 100 times to a lot of people that come to me for help, and I tell them, a lot of times people will pick you because you're easy to work with, you're fast,
Yeah.
you're easygoing, all this kind of stuff. They'll much rather have that than somebody else who's the opposite and
Hmm.
may have more experience or something like that. So
Exactly.
so definitely keep that in mind. I keep saying we're going to close this out, but I keep thinking of another question.
No
Uh,
problem.
uh,
No
uh,
problem.
on a business standpoint, for
Yeah.
those that are like, that are still, that they're doing like, little organizations and school projects for schools and things like that, and they want to step it up, and they want to get into commercials
Yeah.
and things that are more, like you said, you got crews and whatnot. How do you get into that? How do you what's the ladder?
Yeah.
How
I
did you get
mean,
into it?
yeah, you got to, I mean, there's no real trick. I mean, I just worked really hard and for free on a lot, as many productions as I could get on, and like would go on any set that I could, and just especially me coming from an After Effects background, I would start out, that was a good in for me in a lot of ways. Like I would be like able, I was doing free effects work for a friend's video or
Interesting.
whatever, and then
Nice.
sort of plugging, hey, I also direct, check out this stuff or whatever.
Nice.
A
Nice.
lot of the time, a lot of the time, some of my clients came as motion graphics based first, and then sort of found out that I directed also. And the other thing is just personal projects, you know, like if you're sitting around waiting for somebody to hire you so that you can do that one big cool project that you've been wanting to do, it's going to be, you know, you're going to be waiting forever.
Yeah, you know that's yeah. The personal project is a big one, and you know what now let's set up a hypothetical for a second.
Okay.
You're gonna do a personal project, and you know you're gung ho about it. Let's say it's not too monstrous. Ideally, what do you need in place to execute a personal project to have it look pristine at the level of a commercial? Well, what do you need? How many people do you need? You need a truck full of lights. What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I don't think, I mean, definitely not. I mean, it's all about the concept, you know? If your concept works that it's one, you know, one actor and it's all at magic hour, I mean, there's no reason that you can't just do that yourself and shoot it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's all about the concept. I mean, the first like music video that I did, which is kind of like the way that I started, you know, it was a personal project that I did. Is basically a friend of mine who, you know, was in a band, and he, you know, I kind of liked music and I wanted to do a video for him. So me and a friend of mine at school who was a cinematography major, we like decided that we want to do a video. We were in school, so you know you're able to pull together a ton of resources that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have. You know, and we shot on 16, and I mean it was a small crew, and you know we asked a ton of favors, and you know we each put in a little bit of our own money, so that. And, you know, obviously $0 back return on our investment there. But the trick is that, you know, then after that guy, the artist that we did it for, he ended up getting signed, and that label saw the video and liked it and wanted me to do the next video, and then the next video and the next, and so on. And I mean, it was all sort of, you know, it's just snowballs from there. So.
It's an investment. I mean, that would be the word, that would be the term that I would use right there. You said there's no dollars back, but that's wrong. You know, when somebody goes and buys a stock, they just spent money. Money came out of their pocket. But what's the end goal? The end goal is to get way more.
Right.
So that's what you did. You spent money, your time and effort, and look what came of it.
Exactly.
So it's an investment.
Yeah. I used to teach a music video class at the Academy of Art, and I would always tell my students that when you're doing a project, you either got to get something out of it. You got to get something out of it. So it's either got to be money, connection.
Yeah.
Or something for your reel. So those are the three categories that I think everything falls into. So if you're not getting, you know, a lot of times, especially like right out of school, people are like, oh, you know, I'm not working for free or whatever. But if that's an amazing connection for you, then it's worth it. Then who cares if you're working for free? If it's something amazing for your reel that you're going to get called for in the future, then whatever. Who cares if you're not making any money? If it's neither of those things, it's no connections and no, you know, nothing cool for your reel, then you're making money, and that's great. Then you made some money. So
yeah. I would add even a fourth category, which might fit into one of those three. I'm not sure, but I would add experience / learning.
Totally.
So you know, if you get a chance to be on a set with a lot of pros and you get to see them work.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Totally.
That's worth so much. That's how I would say I got my progress, is just from keeping my eyes and ears open and being close to experts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, you gave us a scenario of doing a music video on your own, having a good concept. I've seen a lot of people, you know, go out and try to they have a decent concept, and it just falls flat on its butt. It just looks so, I mean, for the lack of a better word, corny. It looks corny all day long. I don't know if I've given you enough information, but is there something you can tell us on why some things just come out corny as hell? And some look like the real deal?
Man, I don't know. That's a good question.
What is it? You know? Because sometimes I see stuff that looks so corny, and I say, well, it looks like they got everything in place. They got good equipment. The people know how to do it, but the whole thing just doesn't jive.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just a combination, you know, it's a combination of all those things, and like everything kind of has to work together, or else if one thing stands out as corny, then the whole thing feels corny. So, you know, it could be just the way that it was shot. Like if it's, you know, maybe they're shooting on a, you know, really, you know, really, oops, sorry. You know, really sharp depth, like their depth of field is like not shallow at all. And it just feels like, you know, or maybe they're shooting like on 30 frames per second. So it feels really, you know, like crisp and video-y. And maybe the video part looks great, but the acting is just horrible. And the actors are just way over the top or whatever. And, you know, the direction is off. So, I mean, I think everything, you know, I don't know.
It all has to fall in place. It all has to fall in place. But it seems like what I'm getting from that is that when you're going to go and do something on your own, you know, make sure you have all the pieces in place. Take the time to get the right actors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Don't just, you know, say, hey, I want to do this, so I'm just going to grab whoever. And
Totally.
Then you're going to not have a good final product.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you just rush and, you know, skip on, you know, you think you have everything, but you can just skip on this one part and get your brother to act or whatever because you don't want to do a casting session. You know, if that's not the right choice, then your whole project's not worth it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, that's how you learn. You know, you do projects and something falls flat on its face and you realize that what one weak part is, and, you know, that's how you know what to do different next time. So
Right. Okay, Adam, this is great. I mean, it was different for most interviews. We're getting a director's point of view on cinematography, but I think it's very important. I think it's very important to know that in the whole scheme of things. And plus, you gave us a whole lot of insights, you know, from us, you know, looking at it through the lens of cinematography. So
cool.
Yeah, it was great. And,
yeah, man, thanks for having me.
You know, maybe we'll have you on again because you keep doing unbelievable stuff. Everybody needs to go to what's the website?
AdamPatch.com.
AdamPatch.com.
Patch, P-A-T-C-H.
P-A-T-C-H. Unreal stuff there.
Thanks
Adam. Take it easy.
Appreciate it, dude. Okay, bye.